Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Aging Services Thought Leadership. My name is Majd-Alwan. I'm the founder and CEO of AIVantAge AI-Vantage, which focuses on advancing technology and innovation strategies, adoption, and growth, particularly in the aging services. It's my pleasure today to welcome Justine Medina Tamillo, who is the Senior Vice President of Business Development and Community Engagement at the Center for Elders Independence, or CEI, in California. Welcome, Justine, and thank you for taking time to be here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great. Today, Justine and I are going to be discussing some of the innovations, including technology innovations, in PACE, the Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, which is a program that is near and dear to my heart because I firmly believe in its effectiveness, in its alignment of incentives between for the provider, and hence I believe it is a great setting where we can do a lot of innovation, including adoption of innovative technology solutions that enable care delivery and support independence, as your center's name implies, right?
That's right. That's right.
So let's go ahead and start by you, Justine, sharing with us a little bit of a background about yourself, your role, CEI, and again, the programs that you have within run under the PACE umbrella.
Great, thank you. Well, I have about nearly 40 years of healthcare experience. I've been lots of different roles in healthcare. Came and found the PACE world about 2 decades ago. I wish I had found it earlier in my career. I would have been in it a whole lot longer because it really is an amazing model. I joined CEI here in 2023, and I'm responsible for developing strategic growth and expansion efforts to increase, just overall growth within our CEI catchment area, which is both Alameda and Contra Costa counties here in Northern California. And, really looking for new business opportunities, partnership, really looking for how do we here at CEI really embrace the community that we live in. This is where we want to keep our seniors. We want to have them stay at home. And so we want to be good partners to all of the other folks who are doing business here in our community. PACE is my 4th PACE program. And my most recent one, I worked for a startup for-profit PACE program based out of New York City. And we really were focused on bringing the PACE model to suburban and rural areas across the country. We had a really rapid growth plan. So I learned an awful lot about how do you take this wonderful model and really sort of embed it into a community in rural middle America, in other sort of outlying areas of big urban centers. I mean, urban areas have often a lot more resources than smaller rural communities. So actually really helped me sort of round out my PACE experience. So I worked, then I'm sort of working backwards. I worked for one of the largest PACE programs here in California in Los Angeles. And we had really nearly 4,000 participants that we took care of in 2 counties there. So this big program. Really proud to say that I had a hand in growing that program. We doubled our census in 5 years through really embedding ourselves in the community. PACE is the best kept secret in healthcare, I believe. It is a program that truly wraps around services to an individual so that they can stay safely at home and not really be in institutional care as they age. And this is really the sickest of the sick, the frail seniors who we're concerned about how do we keep them safely at home. So that was the largest PACE program I worked for. And then I started my PACE career by having the great opportunity to open the first rural PACE center here in California. up near the Oregon border. Very, very small rural community, and really embedded in the community. The entire community embraced taking care of their seniors and having them stay in the community. It was a wonderful collaborative experience for me. Walking down the street and people know who you are, and they also know that you're doing that good work. So it's a really, really wonderful thing. Prior to my PACE world, I had leadership positions with the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. I worked with many physician groups, mostly on looking at how do we improve education and the practice, and really, particularly my love is for the care of older adults. My graduate degree is as a gerontological clinical nurse specialist, and really focusing on acute and critical care. Moving into the community has been the best and greatest joy that I've been able to have. You asked me about CEI. Well, CEI has been here in this community for nearly 45 years. And it's always amazing to me that when I walk into a community-based organization and they're going like, we don't know who you are, and having folks just not be aware that we've been taking care of seniors here for nearly 5 decades. It's pretty amazing. In 1982, the activists and leaders in Alameda County, we're at the hub of free speech and a lot of other activism in our country. And these folks really saw the need for an ability for the community to take care of its own. And so they really partnered and really helped CEI embed itself in we worked with the local community hospital and started the first PACE program back in the 80s. We're embedded in the fabric of the Bay Area. We have deep partnerships with other healthcare organizations, but all of those folks that you think of, Meals on Wheels, senior housing communities. I'm proud to say that we've even sort of extended our roots further out, and in this past year, we were able to open 3 PACE centers in the summer. So we extended our own reach within our own catchment area. Our tenet is we want services to be as close as possible to where people live. So it's been really great to be on this growth journey here.
Excellent. So, given your vast experience with space, particularly in healthcare and elder care in general, but specifically in PACE, what are some of the trends that you have observed or are observing with regards to technology and the need and the potential of technology, especially in the PACE program, whether that's for the centers themselves, but also I know that a lot of PACE programs do deliver services into the home. So again, that's and I think one of my observation, you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm seeing a lot more shift for demand in-home services. As opposed to older adults or participants, PACE participants coming to the centers themselves.
Yeah, it's the model was really based on sort of this hub and wrapping services around an individual. The core of PACE is the PACE center. It's a clinic, it's a daycare center, it's a rehab gym, we have 11 disciplines, dietitians, social workers, all available to participants on a daily basis. I used to like to say, you just need to come in and knock on the magic door and you get to see your provider. So it is, it's a one-stop shopping for folks who have difficulty getting to their appointments and family members who are stressed out about being able to keep up with all of the needs of a frail senior. The technology is something here that is underutilized. We're a high touch business. We are working with a cohort of individuals who grew up with paper and really have started to embrace technology, but really not at the same level as their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So we have to always be really mindful of, does technology help either the caregiver, the healthcare provider, or the participant directly that is meaningful to them? And so each one of those audiences really has to, we have to really think about, is this a tool for me, the worker, or is this really supposed to help give me time to really spend with in person with that individual? So, I think, here in innovation, we hired this wonderful new CIO a couple of years ago who's been really helping us really see the opportunities we have. We've been sort of experimenting, sort of looking for opportunities to use AI, and we call it augmented intelligence here for exactly that reason, is that we're using augmented intelligence for better outcomes. So it's always driving to a thing. It is our opportunity to really look at where technology can enhance human capabilities and leveraging that at all levels of our operations. Transportation, logistics, anything that reduces administrative burden of either our healthcare workers, our physicians, our nurses. Can what they're doing be done and supported by technology so that they can really understand the needs of the participants and really focus on doing that work together? We've really spent a lot of time looking at cybersecurity and looking at really where are the opportunities to do something that's supportive and not do it just because we can. And so that whole ethical line that we strive, because I tell folks all the time is that if I can't explain this to my own mother and feel like I can really sort of stand behind it, then we probably need to take a pause and really understand, what is it that we're trying to accomplish. I think really we looked at how we deliver care, how do we expand our own mission for growth and development and growth and looking to bring this model to more and more seniors. We looked at seamless care delivery. So how does our electronic health medical record, how do all of the applications and systems? In my own department, we are the outreach and enrollment department. We use a robust CRM for every aspect of our work. Having opportunities for touch it one time and have it go to all the places you need for it to go, and not be duplicative or manual work. Prior to looking at some of these innovations, we were taking reports that we get from our regulators and then manually putting that into other systems. And the amount of error that we have been able to cut out with that has been incredibly supportive for us. It's, really looking at how do our interdisciplinary team members communicate with each other. So it is, embracing communication tools. One of the areas I also have responsibility for is our marketing and communications department. And how do we engage our workforce around change? Has been one of the biggest opportunities we've had to maximize technology. Can my drivers get the same information on their phone or their iPad as a worker who's in finance, sitting in front of a desktop all day? So we have to look at what is the intent of the need and what is the best tool to help us support the work and help us all sort of continue to stay on the same page. Once we've made the commitment to do this, incredibly expensive. We're a nonprofit. We've been here for 45 years, and with that is the expense worth? Is the juice worth the squeeze for us to do this? And we've had great opportunities to support our experiments through grants and some other funding sources for us. That takes a lot of time and energy. So, having, again, search tools and other organizations really help us on this journey. I'll tell you about a program that we did that directly affected our participants. we got this wonderful grant from one of our great partners, and it helped us do a program that we called Web Links, and where we created like a little mini university for our participants, and we showed them how to use an iPad and how to maximize, get an email address and talk to their grandchildren. And as folks sort of went through this class, taught them a lot about how to be sure you're not frauded by some individuals, and
Yep.
how do we enrich their lives that are not directly related to healthcare. And we felt it was our duty to really help our seniors move through this. Once they graduated, they got to keep their iPad and they got to do this. We couldn't have been able to afford that as on our own. And so one of the things that I'd really like to take folks is, if there's stuff that you can do to help support smaller programs, really embrace technology and supplement other people's lives, it's money well spent. Because once your grandmother calls you on FaceTime and asks you how you're doing, you feel the joy of what that technology can bring to an entire family. I've talked a lot about how we empower our workforce. I have team members who are in the field all day, and I have an ability to track them on their GPS. I know where they are. I know if they run into a situation where they need immediate assistance, they can get that for us. It's the things that folks don't think about in their daily life because the tools are readily available. Well, when you come to work, you expect to be able to do what you can do at home. And so we're always looking for those new opportunities. And then I think just lastly here, really around data-driven insights and how do we do continuous improvement? Tools that help us with business intelligence, helps us to track and trend and look at where we can make additional improvements so that our dollars are extended further, and really sort of maximize that, how we stay in compliance to our regulators and to the folks who are our funding sources. We're a capitated program. We get funding from both Medicare and Medicaid to take care of our participants, and that's it. There's no additional money we can get through claims like any other health plan. So it's important for us to always be thinking about how can we do more? How can we look for opportunities to grow and to really do this? Our partnership with some of our community partners has been instrumental in our success. I think without them, we've not been able to do some of this. So I've said a lot there.
That's great. That's great. I'm thrilled to see that you've actually answered my next question was about some of the impacts. Mm-hmm. But maybe I can ask you a different question. Have you considered, again, since your participants, enrollees, right, live out in the community, have you considered, and since you're also a capitated model, right, where exacerbation of a chronic condition or an arising health issue or non-compliance with medication regimens can also impact not only the quality of care and the quality of life of your participants, but also can lead to hospitalization and maybe even institutionalization if they fall and break a hip because of a UTI that was not detected early, right? So have you considered remote monitoring technologies? And there are a lot of remote monitoring technologies, whether it's biometric remote patient monitoring to monitor vital signs and help you manage chronic conditions like diabetes and blood pressure and so on and so forth, and prevent unnecessary hospitalizations and hospital readmissions, or behavioral or activity monitoring, again, to understand behavioral patterns and potentially detect early signs of either an arising health issue or sort of a gradual decline, whether it's physical functional decline that warrants therapy, for example, or cognitive decline that requires some different type of intervention. So
sure. Yeah, proactive care is quality care. And so for us, the more that we know to get ahead of something, that's why this model is just so awesome. We're 24/7 full risk model. So we care about what happens at home at the end of the day. And, we've been looking at how do we extend our reach? How do we extend our care, our arms around these seniors in their homes themselves? In fact, that's how you and I got connected, was are looking for some opportunities for us to gather information and data before a problem happens, and how can we do that? As the PACE program does provide all services at no additional cost to the participant itself. So anything that we can do that they would normally have to pay for themselves, or that have a live human be in their presence 24/7. We have folks who, for lack of any other resources, would be in skilled nursing facilities. And and that, there's a place for that. And it is when you need to have your eyes and your physical presence and ability to react quickly to a potential problem. We're looking for technology to help us with that, so that we can be alerted. We can keep people out of the emergency room. Hospitals and emergency rooms are horrible for older adults. We want to be able to do that in a way that keeps their dignity and their wishes at the top of our mind. We're constantly looking for opportunities to make that happen. Home care is always need a little extra help. I got to get you to the bathroom or get a shower done. Most of the time, family members are really shouldering that responsibility. We can help caregivers do better, more, faster when we know specifically what that need is, and give rest to the family members so they can just be the daughter or the son or the granddaughter and not also be the caregiver. So it's important for us to continually look for solutions to that. The challenge for us always is how expensive is that? What's that cost look like? Well, what we're finding is it's actually cost savings. And so looking for those opportunities, one hospitalization or one ER visit could pay for this technology for many participants over a greater period of time. So how do I, as the business development person, go to my executive leadership team and saying, I can save you money you haven't spent yet by doing this thing that's going to cost X amount of dollars? So having and engaging with technology companies to be able to articulate the long-term benefit is
ROI.
Always, is always helpful for that. I think the thing is there's always ways to monitor and measure the physical health of someone. You can see them, you can talk to them, you can hear what their concerns are. But there's the other aspect that we are really deeply concerned about, and we think technology can be a great solution for that. And that's really around social isolation and really the what our mental health does for connections with other people. We see frequently people coming into our program who may have not seen another person except for when they go to see the doctor, and who feel like they're completely separate from all of the other opportunities. The technology is helping us by being able to find ways in which they can connect with people. I joke about FaceTime and all of that, but it really is showing that these folks have a greater quality of life. They demonstrate and talk about how much happier they are. And we really sort of are focused on that. I think remote monitoring, remote options that connects us as, for folks who are not old and frail and live out in the world, we don't think twice about picking it up and sending a text message to our family member about how their day is. Seniors need that connection too, but we need to help them. We need to help them see it, feel it, and see the benefit to all of that. it's about extending what a human being could do for you in the most appropriate way. I think
Exactly.
I answered that kind of question. It's really it's all part of the whole person. The PACE model really sort of, we wrap around our assessments of an individual to get them what they need, hopefully before they need it, and then to really help folks understand that you can live and age successfully no matter what your health condition is, with the right supports wrapped around you.
Exactly, but based on my observations, both from my sort of researcher hat when I was at the University of Virginia, developing technologies for remote monitoring and so on and so forth, as well as my career at Leading Age. I also see a need for better understanding older adults' ability to remain safely and be capable of doing their own activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living, right? And usually a visit to the center or to the clinic or to a general practitioner's office does not give you that. It's a short snapshot. It does not give you a good sense of how they're doing with these things. I don't know if you agree about that.
Absolutely. I think the thing about this program is that once people enroll with us, they usually stay with us until they pass. And so we get to know them daily, year over year. We are all up in their business, as my friends would say, is that the more we know about you, the more that we can help you with that. It's always interesting when you think about it. I think about it from my clinician point of view and really the sort of scientific point of view. You see all of these wonderful things that we can do and that we can get all to these great outcomes, but ultimately still comes down to, did that person really see the impact that it had for themselves? I'll tell you one of my favorite stories is, as I was working with a nurse and we were talking to a participant. This was an older gentleman who had, was sort of grouchy and really sort of really didn't keep a lot of connections even in the center. And we were looking at continuous improvement. So we had made some changes in the center, and this nurse asked him, like, Mr. Smith, we've made all of these changes. I really would like your opinion about how we're doing. And, he took a big deep breath, and then he looked over at the two of us, and a tear came off the side of his eye. And he goes, it's been a long time since anybody asked me what my opinion was. He goes,
wow.
Usually people tell me what to do. They tell me when they're going to pick me up. They tell me what to eat. He goes, and really sort of the opportunity to really understand the life that this person has lived, and to take a moment to stop and ask for opinion. You can't get that in a doctor's office in 15 minutes. You can't get that by going to your rehab, your physical therapist. You get that by really having these deep human interpersonal connections with folks. And this is where this model is really sort of set up to provide that opportunity. But it really takes that clinician, that nurse who had the time to do that. Could not do that if she was sitting behind a desk doing all of her documentation for the day. So it's
exactly
really hand in hand that technology has to be able to free up individuals to make the deep human connections that we all want to have as we age.
Excellent. I could not agree more. So what are some of the challenges that you see, whether it's in the sector in general or at CEI, and what suggestions do you have for technologies that could help address these challenges?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I talked a little bit about social support and really how do we take a look at this, but really it's not only for the person we care for, but also their family members and the caregivers. I think technology could really help those of us. I see my mother. I stay with her a couple of weeks out of every month, and to see the really the difference that it takes for somebody to really spend deep time. I'm not taking care of her, I'm being her daughter. And so that, I think technology, it could help caregivers really release some of the burden about keeping on top of things and making sure all of those things happen. I think critical gaps that we continue to see is really, the limited resources for diverse communities, particularly for folks who are either monolingual or bilingual and have grown their entire lives and are now seeing opportunities that really just that other people can experience and they really can't see themselves. There's economic barriers to access to care. The PACE program is really set up for poor, frail seniors who want to live in the community, but they don't know about us. So, the barriers that
so awareness of these programs.
Yeah, it's a voluntary program. We are restricted, different than Medicare Advantage programs. So it takes grassroots. Again, it takes us out in the community, at events, really making sure those things happen. The barriers to grow. We wish we could grow faster and serve more people, but it takes capital. It takes us setting up a building. It takes us hiring team members. And we hear about this in the news all the time, is available of qualified healthcare workers who can do this. And even just, caring individuals who want to help us with home care and personal care and some of those things that don't take advanced degrees. How do we train that workforce to really be able to support this level of care? And then, really regulatory bottlenecks for us. We're highly regulated. There's opportunity. We're always worried about funding because we're funded by Medicare and Medicaid. So anytime there's whispers in this, it ripples down into the community, and folks are concerned. If I enroll in this program, are you going to still be here next year? So anything that we can do as a people, as a nation, to look for solidifying the funding source to care for our frail seniors. It's incredibly expensive to our entire healthcare system to institutionalize older adults because they can't live safely at home, when safely at home has a great model. And how can we get more people into a PACE program? The tightening of our belts and money, particularly for nonprofit organizations, we're continually looking for how do we partner with other groups and make sure that both of our missions are aligned and to move those things forward. I would love to wave my technology magic wand and get some of these things done, but it's access, it's funding, it's available team members and staff. It's the same concerns that other healthcare organizations have. For us, we know what we're doing works, and we know that by really freeing up our team members to really do this great work is the place where we can really leverage technology and the support of others in our communities.
Excellent. Let me ask you about the growth in terms of participants. What methods have you, in addition to partnership with other organizations and being physically present in events, have you considered or looked at sort of advertisement, not necessarily just targeting older adults that are frail, but maybe their family members, extended family members? Have you looked at advertising through radio, public radio, and even sort of public
Podcasts.
Service? Yes, well, podcasts, public service announcements on radios and televisions. I think I personally haven't seen much of that, but I think it probably would help.
Yeah, we've embraced really getting awareness out there. Part of my responsibility is community engagement. Well, I needed to understand, what did our community know about us? What's brand awareness? It's the discipline of marketing and communicating so that people are aware of resources. again, it's a expensive endeavor to do this.
It is.
But
Can be.
But it is. We feel like it's part of our responsibility sort of to bring more awareness around this type of program and make sure that folks know about it. Looking for, opportunities that don't cost a lot of money, sort of presenting ourselves as thought leaders, representing, the community on television programs and on news segments. Our chief medical officer often speaks to Spanish language television and our local networks around Nutrition Month and Heart Healthy Month. And the more that people can hear our name, then it's easier for us to do that. So a lot of the methods is lots of things on social to really get at the family members and the caregivers. That's where folks are getting their news. We do a market research, really how do people know about us? We do this every year, and to make sure that we are continuing to evolve our own thinking about this. We are seeing an uptick in the amount of seniors using their cell phones and using that as their primary source of information. So we have, web banners and really sort of getting more on socials, telling stories and showing folks really what the wonderful, great life they could have in a program like ourselves. So, and for us to invest in the expertise of folks who know how to do that better than I do, and get them to be part of our team so that we aren't just looking at printing brochures and leaving them on tabletops. We know that for some folks work, but we are an evolving thinking community in which we have to meet people where they are. And we have to bring information in sound bites. Somebody asked me once, would you rather do a 1-minute commercial or a 30-second commercial? And it's like, I'll take 30 seconds any day of the week, because you've got to be sharp. You've got to be able to talk about the benefit and give people an opportunity to find out more if they want to. We completely revamped our website a couple of years ago, and every 6 months we're looking at ways to make it better, because we're finding that that's also a place where people come to find additional information. It's no longer that electronic page turning where you just go and you see an ad. We have billboards on the freeways. We have, lots of different methods in which folks to do that. We saw a huge increase in just our brand awareness in the course of 1 year by being very deliberate about telling people where we are. Again, 45 years in this community and folks still don't know we're here. It's a constant feeding the media monster, if you will. Yep.
But again, it is effective, I think, and we need. That's why I wanted to ask you about it and raise awareness and of the audience.
Yeah, there are PACE programs all across the country. There's we just hit 200 PACE programs, PACE organizations. In almost every state. There are still states who don't have PACE.
In 33 states, I think. The rule.
So it's when you talk about PACE, it's the same model, but every PACE organization is reflective of the community that they're in. So
has its own flavor.
That's right. We tell people you walked into one PACE center, you walked into one PACE center, because it will look and feel different based on where you are. There are small nonprofit PACE organizations who really struggle to be able to expend the kind of resources it takes to be out there in their communities. And they do a lot of that through grassroots. They do it through, what they call the sales team. I have enrollment development specialists who are out there knocking on doors and meeting with other community organizations. It is a constant need to remind people that we're here.
Absolutely.
Because you may not need our services, but I know somebody who could benefit from this. And so that's really our approach, is that, we're here. Here's the story we can tell you about how great this is for seniors. And just, if you ever have a question, we'll give you a tour. We'll do open arms into the community itself. It's been successful for us. And we're starting to see that return on our investment by being able to open more centers and to be able to do more. So it's the old adage of you've got to feed it. You've got to feed it. You've got to continually remind people that this is a resource that is really beneficial. Exactly.
So you also touched upon the sector-wide challenge of workforce, right? So let me ask you this: is it more of a retention issue, recruitment issue, engagement, and again, engagement of employees is tied to retention, right? So which one is it more, or all? I'm sure it's probably all of it, right? But I'm curious, where do you see more of a pain point? Is it recruitment or retention?
Gosh, it really depends on the year and the role. We have roles that we know are hard to fill, and these are folks, your physicians, your nurses, your nurse practitioners, your physical therapists, occupational therapists. These are the licensed, skilled team members who really set up the entire plan. But it's also the piece of non-skilled individuals, and there are more and more opportunities for folks. But where do they get the training? I think there's a need for skilled certified nursing assistants or drivers, or folks who help us work in the facilities, folks who do non-skilled labor, home care workers. We have difficulty in finding enough, and when we do get them, we put together robust training programs and really being committed to career growth for some folks in the communities. It is being so embedded here. We create training opportunities. We will provide internship opportunities for vocational schools. We often work with universities to give clinical experiences to some of their clinicians, but you have to be pretty sophisticated in order to really have that oversight and to really build those relationships with those institutions. It is difficult. Recruitment, I'm finding that I don't have difficulty getting applicants for some of the positions. Where I really see the challenge is in getting a person to really understand that this is a different care model. This is not like to work in a hospital. This is where you have to be engaged in the outcome that you're trying to see. And so it is finding team members who get and live the mission with us. And so how do you find them? You find them through your connections and really telling the story over and over again. There's a place for folks, retired individuals, volunteers. We have a partnership with one of the local high schools in which those high school students come in and help us with our operational work, but also give them opportunities to really interact with different generations and to see the benefit in that. The opportunities for a community-based health plan that provides services to their neighbors is the kind of healthcare we all want. So it's easy to get somebody excited about coming to work for a place like CEI, but it's getting to them, telling that story, getting folks to engage and really sort of hear the message, I think is part of the challenge that we have. So it is recruitment for some positions. It is retention for folks. We give them all these great experiences, and now they've got this great experience and they go on with their lives and careers. We have to be okay with that. That's part of what we're offering to the community that we're involved in. It causes pain points, for sure. And we have to be a great employer and create, an environment where team members want to stay with us and feel respected and part of their job. if I can give you a technology solution so that you could spend more time doing the part of the work you love, you're not going to go looking for another job.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I also, I'm asking because I'm familiar with a few technology and AI based solutions that can help you improve your retention, increase your retention through sort of engagement of the employees, through sort of getting signals about dissatisfaction, whether it's dissatisfaction with the job, dissatisfaction with their supervisors, right? Sometimes the adage goes, people don't quit jobs, they quit supervisors.
Yeah.
So I'm asking to see if any of these things are of interest.
Super important. We talk about, it's easy to talk about recruitment and hiring of direct caregivers. It is equally, if not harder, to find leaders, to find managers and supervisors, directors at all levels who understand that it's not just about getting the work done at the end of the day, it's about creating an environment in which people are heard and that their opinion matters. It's like the story I told you about Mr. Smith. It's like, if you don't ask your team members what their opinion is about stuff, you're never going to find out where the nuggets of improvements are to look at. We've instituted here at CEI, there's lots of options for jobs particularly in this community, in the Bay Area. We're spitting distance from Silicon Valley. So, and across from San Francisco and here in Oakland, lots and lots of opportunities for folks. So how do we differentiate ourselves? Well, you have to do that by creating a culture.
Exactly.
And the culture of engagement. We have an organizational development department and training department who are always looking for ways to support our team members. Again, we have the ability, because we're a large enough PACE program, to have resources to make these things happen. It is equally challenging for smaller organizations to do that piece of it. I think technology can help really look for opportunities to engage, but it all has to come from hiring the right people and then giving them the support and training them so that they can continue to be good leaders.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But again, there are AI-based tools that can help you pre-screen your candidates and identify the ones that are culturally a good fit, right?
Correct.
For the role. So
excellent. My CHRO leader is a person who is always embracing, how does he get his recruiters to do more, and how does he get his HR business partners to be able to support more. And wherever possible, it really is around extending the expertise of the team member so that they can focus on the work that really has the biggest impact. And that is the interactions and interfaces with team members. It's learning from each other. If I think I know all the answers, then I should just go home, because my team members will move on without me. They often have the best ideas, and to create an opportunity where people feel comfortable and confident to raise those is part of what I strive to do every day.
Yeah. Or as you said, augment their capabilities, the team members' capabilities with technology, with AI tools, and so on and so forth. And if someone knows everything, I wouldn't say should go home. I would say they should fire everybody else and do the job themselves, right? But I don't think that's possible.
That's right. Nobody has enough time.
Exactly. So let me ask you about your goals. You and I can continue talking for hours. But what are some of your CEI's goals, your goals for the next year to 3 years, to 5 years potentially?
My 5 years. Well, gosh, I would love to double our enrollment, in another 5 years. I think there's so much need out there. So how do we grow fast enough and responsibly enough so that we can add more PACE centers to do that? To embrace the role that we play. CEI was the second PACE program here in California. This is a model in which it's heavy on experiential learning. So one of the things that I foresee and that I would really love to have my hand in is really being a thought leader and to be a good partner and trainer of other PACE organization leaders. You can learn a lot from somebody who's done some of the heavy lifting earlier in a career, but you still have to experience it. So it's not just about, creating CEI University and training leaders in the future, but it is really around continuing to build that community. We have a national PACE organization that allows us to connect in communities across state lines. I think that there is still something to be said about, here is how we did it, here's how we got here, and here are the steps that you need to take in order to learn the best pathway for yourself.
Case studies, right? Sort of here's the situation, here's the problem. This was our approach to the solution. Here are the outcomes. Here are the lessons that we've learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And here's our advice, right, to others who may be interested in replicating or. So I really focused on case studies, collecting and sharing case studies when I was at CAST.
Yeah.
So with that, what advice might you have for listeners, whether they're another PACE provider or a technology developer, another payer, patients, families?
Oh gosh, advice I would give to folks. I would advise them not to look for the easy answer. I get phone calls all the time saying, can you share your tool? Can you tell me how you did it? Or can you just give me the quick answer? I can do that. I can do that all day long, but it's not going to solve your problem. It's like, really, I think my advice would be figure out what is your methodology for knowing and understanding the problem that you're trying to solve. And
what are you trying to, what's your problem, right? What's the problem you're trying to solve, right? And who is it touching? And yeah.
And then figure out what are your guardrails. Again, we're heavily regulated. There's often regulations. Somebody will tell me, well, we have to do it this way because the regulations say so. My experience is that the regulations are there so that you can make that condition happen 100% of the time. What works for us here at CEI may not work for another PACE organization because of whatever the condition is. So, for here we start with what problem are you trying to solve? What resources do we have readily available? Are we allowed to do it that way? And is there some flexibility around creativity, the use of other tools to make those things happen? We all want the same thing, which is to do the right thing in the right time and to be most cost effective in making that happen. But it is around thinking and learning, and thinking and learning takes time. So my advice to folks is, carve out time in your week and your day in which you just think about a really hard problem and think about what are all of the things I need to know about it before I solve it. If you don't, as a leader, if you don't carve out time to really think about those things, then you're going to be lured by a solution to maybe not the problem you have because you think you want to get that done faster. So for my technology colleagues and hopefully partners in the future, stop trying to sell me a solution and help me to understand my problem and which your solution is the right answer. And it is easy. I run into my team members and some of my fellow executives here is that we often will not make a fast decision because we have to understand how does it fix the problem today? If we're going to invest our hard-earned dollars, that if we spend it on this, we can't spend it on participants, then we have to be really certain that it's going to take us into the future with that. There are a lot of things that can help you solve your everyday problems, but it is really those deeper understanding of what is it going to look like in 5 years? Am I going to need to replace all of these things? because the solution is no longer the problem that I have.
Right. So I would add to that, I would remind people to, when they're thinking about the problem, to engage others who the solution or the potential solution could touch, right? Whether it's internal partners or external partners, right? Because again, as you said, some PACE programs offer services through partnerships, right? As opposed to having dedicated internal teams. And think and analyze all the touch points and all the workflows, and ensure that how the technology could potentially change the workflow and streamline it, as opposed to bringing technology to automate the same thing, which usually does not result in much gains or efficiencies, right?
Yep. I think another bit of advice I would give to folks is own your expertise. Stay well aware. Look for continually learning your craft. I can teach you about PACE every day, but I can't teach you to be a good physical therapist. I can't teach you to be a good supervisor of drivers. Coming prepared to your employer with, here is what I know it could work in this situation, really opens up the dialogue around, is this, how can we do this better and faster together?
Excellent advice. Again, I have enjoyed the conversation immensely. This was supposed to be 30 minutes. We're almost up to an hour now. So let me close by asking you to tell the audience where they can learn more about CEI or yourself, your programs, your website, your social media handles, and all those good things.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, you can always reach us at CEI here at www.elders.org. That's our website. And there's access to all of the other departments. We've created a really robust website. You can actually do a virtual tour of any of our centers, see opportunities that we've had in which our team members have educated the community. We have an entire what we call blog section, which is evergreen learnings for folks. Caregiver stress. How do you continue to grow and learn? There's that on LinkedIn, and all of our team members. There's a really great short bios of all of the leaders here. Our email addresses are our first initial, last name, and at cei.elders.org. Please feel free to reach out. I'm always open and willing to engage with folks who have great thoughts and ideas and to share them back and forth. I think this is the only way that we're going to continue to raise awareness about this wonderful program and to get it in every community so that our seniors don't need to be institutionalized and they can live at home safely and with high quality and satisfaction. Excellent.
Well, thank you again, Justine. This has been immensely informational and beneficial, and engaging, of course. So thank you again. And everyone, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any suggestions for a future PACE program or a future topic to discuss. But you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great. Thank you.